A girl, a wolf, and a sick grandmother. Sounds like a familiar story, right? In this video, you will practice your English listening with this story. You will improve your vocabulary. And by the end of the video, you will be able to tell this story confidently in English. So, welcome. Take a seat in my library. Open your ears. What big ears you have as we explore the story and history of Little Red Riding Hood. So, to begin, here is what to expect in this video. One, I will read the story with no interruptions. You will see the text and be able to follow along with me. Two, I will read the story again and explain some of its vocabulary. Three, I will ask you 7 comprehension questions to make sure you understood the story. And 4, we will do some discussion about the history and other interesting details of Little Red Riding Hood. And now, I think we are ready to enter the forest and begin our journey to Grandma's house. Once upon a time, there was a sweet little girl loved by everyone who met her, but most of all by her grandmother. The old woman adored her so much that she made her a small red velvet hood. It suited her perfectly, and from that day on, everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. One morning, her mother said, "Come, Little Red Riding Hood, here's a piece of cake and a bottle of wine. Take them to your grandmother. She's sick and weak, and this will do her good. Go before it gets too hot, and remember to walk carefully. Don't stray from the path, or you might fall and break the bottle. And when you arrive, don't forget to say good morning before you peek around her room." "I'll be careful, Mother," said Little Red Riding Hood, and she promised with a smile. The grandmother lived deep in the forest, about half a league from the village. Just as Little Red Riding Hood entered the woods, a wolf appeared on the path. She didn't know what a wicked creature he was and felt no fear at all. "Good morning, Little Red Riding Hood," said the wolf. "Good morning, Mr. Wolf," she replied politely. "Where are you going so early?" he asked. "To my grandmother's house," said the girl. "And what's that in your basket?" "Cake and wine. Grandma's been sick, so Mother sent me to cheer her up." "And where does your grandmother live?" asked the wolf. "A little farther into the woods, under the 3 great oak trees near the hazel bushes. You must know it," she said. The wolf licked his lips and thought, "What a tender young thing. She'll taste even better than the old woman. I'll eat them both, but I'll have to be clever about it." He walked beside her for a bit, then said slyly, "Look how pretty the flowers are here, Little Red Riding Hood. Why not pick some for your grandmother? And listen, don't you hear how sweetly the birds are singing? You walk along so seriously, as if you were going to school when the forest is alive with joy." Little Red Riding Hood looked up and saw sunlight dancing through the trees, making the wildflowers sparkle. "Grandma would love a bouquet," she thought. "I still have plenty of time." So she stepped off the path to gather flowers. Each time she picked one, she saw another, even prettier, farther away, and she wandered deeper and deeper into the forest. Meanwhile, the wolf ran straight to the grandmother's house and knocked at the door. "Who's there?" called the grandmother. "It's me, Little Red Riding Hood," said the wolf sweetly. "I've brought you cake and wine." "Lift the latch," said the grandmother. "I'm too weak to get up." The wolf lifted the latch, pushed open the door and without a word leapt upon the old woman and swallowed her whole. Then he put on her nightgown and cap, pulled the curtains, and lay down in her bed. When Little Red Riding Hood finally reached the cottage, she was surprised to find the door standing open. The room felt strange and quiet. "Oh dear," she whispered, "why do I feel so uneasy today?" She called out, "Good morning, Grandma," but there was no answer. She went to the bed and drew back the curtains. There lay her grandmother, capped pulled low, face shadowed, looking quite odd. "Oh, Grandma, what big ears you have!" "The better to hear you with, my child," came the growling reply. "But, Grandma, what big eyes you have!" "The better to see you with, my dear." "And what big hands you have!" "The better to hug you with." "But, Grandma, what a terrible big mouth you have!" "The better to eat you with," roared the wolf, and before she could scream, he sprang from the bed and swallowed Little Red Riding Hood whole. Full and satisfied, the wolf climbed back into bed and soon began to snore loudly. Just then, a passing huntsman heard the noise and muttered, "That old woman snores like a beast. I should check on her." He stepped inside and saw the wolf stretched out in the bed. "So it's you, you wicked creature," he said, raising his gun. But then he thought, maybe the old woman's still inside. So instead of shooting, he took a pair of scissors and carefully cut open the wolf's belly. After two careful snips, he saw a flash of red inside. A few more cuts, and out sprang Little Red Riding Hood, trembling but unharmed. "Oh, how frightened I was! It was so dark inside," she cried. Then the huntsman cut a little more, and out came the grandmother, pale but alive. To make sure the wolf could never harm anyone again, they filled his belly with heavy stones. When he awoke and tried to flee, the weight pulled him down and he fell dead on the spot. The huntsman skinned the wolf and went on his way. The grandmother ate her cake and drank her wine and soon felt much better. As for Little Red Riding Hood, she thought to herself, "From now on, I'll never wander from the path again when Mother tells me not to." Some say that later, when she was again walking to her grandmother's with cakes, another wolf tried to tempt her off the path. But this time, Little Red Riding Hood was wiser. She walked straight ahead and told her grandmother about the wicked creature she'd met. They locked the door tight, and when the wolf tried to sneak down the chimney, he fell into a great trough of boiling sausage water, and that was the end of him. And from that day forward, Little Red Riding Hood never strayed from the path, and she lived happily ever after. So, did you enjoy the story? Is it the version that you remember from when you were a child? Hmm. There are many versions of Little Red Riding Hood. The one that we're reading today is from AmericanLiterature.com. It is based on the 1857 version by the Brothers Grimm, and we will talk more about that a little later. I have another question. Did you understand all of the vocabulary in this text? Hmm. Okay, that's good. Now we will read the story again, and this time I will slow down a little and explain some of the vocabulary as we go. So, are you ready to go back into the forest? Here we go. Once upon a time, there was a sweet little girl loved by everyone who met her, but most of all by her grandmother. The old woman adored her so much that she made her a small red velvet hood. Now, a hood is just a cover that you place over your head. You can see the picture here of a hood. And when you think of velvet, this is a very soft material. If you imagine a theater, like a Shakespearean theater with live actors, the curtain in this type of theater is often made with velvet. And if you go to a fancy theater, some of the seats might be made from velvet as well. So the small red velvet hood was made for Little Red Riding Hood by her grandmother. It suited her perfectly. And from that day on, everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. So simply from that day on just means from that day continuing into the future. This is a past phrase. In the present, you can use the sentence from now on, the phrase from now on, starting now and continuing into the future. A riding hood. We don't really use this word today. This is an older way to say a traveler's cloak. So this was very English. People who rode horses would often wear a hood, I suppose, to protect them from the rain and the wind. So this is a riding hood. So one morning, her mother said, "Come, Little Red Riding Hood. Here is a piece of cake and a bottle of wine. Take them to your grandmother. She's sick and weak, and this will do her good. If something does you good, it just means it is good for you. It has benefits for you. For example, exercise will do you good. It means exercise will have benefits for you. It will be good for you. Go before it gets too hot and remember to walk carefully. Don't stray from the path. To stray just means to step off the path or to move away from a group or path, or you might fall and break the bottle. And when you arrive, don't forget to say good morning before you peek around her room. So, to peek, you can see the picture at the bottom. It means to take a secret look, to take a brief look around. Her grandmother, sorry, Little Red Riding Hood's mother, is giving her good advice. She's saying, don't enter a person's house and just start looking around. Look at the person and say, good morning. "I'll be careful, mother," said Little Red Riding Hood, and she promised with a smile. The grandmother lived deep in the forest, about half a league from the village. So a league is a unit of measurement. It is 4.8 kilometers. What is half of 4.8? 2.4, unless my math is terrible. So, Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother lived 2.4 kilometers from her house. I have never heard this detail in any of the stories before until this version. Just as Little Red Riding Hood entered the woods, a wolf appeared on the path. So, woods are just a small forest. Basically, about 25 to 60% of space is covered by trees versus 60 to 100% of space for a forest. So, think of a forest as having a lot more trees closer together, covering the sky, essentially. Okay, so woods, the trees have more space between them. She didn't know what a wicked creature he was, what a wicked creature the wolf was, and felt no fear at all. Someone who is wicked is very bad. They can cause you harm, very close to evil, right? Very wicked, bad, can cause harm. And a creature, just another word for an animal or a human. "Good morning, Little Red Riding Hood," said the wolf. "Good morning, Mr. Wolf," she replied politely. "Where are you going so early?" he asked. "To my grandmother's house," said the girl. And what's that in your basket? Cake and wine. Grandma's been sick, so mother sent me to cheer her up. Here is a picture of a basket, just a container for carrying things. You can see it in the bottom right corner. And to cheer someone up just means to make them feel better, to improve their mood, boost their level of happiness. And where does your grandmother live? Asked the wolf. A little farther into the woods. Farther is just the comparative of far, so more far. A little farther into the woods, under the great oak trees near the hazel bushes. You must know it, she said. An oak tree is just a large hardwood tree. There are many varieties of oaks. The thing they have in common is that the leaves have these little ridges around them. So, this is an example of an oak tree leaf. And a hazel bush is a leafy plant. I looked this up, approximately 8 to 15 feet high, that grows hazelnuts. And these are hazelnuts. So grandma in this story, she lives near three big oak trees and a hazel bush or some hazel bushes. So she has hazelnuts growing around her house. The wolf licked his lips and thought, what a tender young thing. She'll taste even better than the old woman. I'll eat them both, but I'll have to be clever about it. So he licked his lips. I'm not going to do that on camera. So when you lick your lips, you run your tongue over your lips, just like you can see here in this picture. And what a tender young thing. If meat is tender, it is easy to chew. It is very soft, tender, soft. I'll have to be clever about it. So, clever, skillful, very smart, mentally quick. So, he will have to think of something smart and clever to trick her. Okay, let's continue the story. He walked beside her for a bit, then said slyly, look how pretty the flowers are here, Little Red Riding Hood. If someone is sly, they are trying to be smooth with their words and they are really hiding their true intentions. They are lying to you. They are acting in a smooth way, but they have bad intentions at the back of their mind. Why not pick some flowers? Why not pick some for your grandmother? And listen, don't you hear how sweetly the birds are singing? You walk along so seriously, as if you were going to school, when the forest is alive with joy. Little Red Riding Hood looked up and saw sunlight dancing through the trees, making the wildflowers sparkle. So, some lovely poetic language here. The sunlight dancing, right, through the trees, making the wildflowers sparkle. A sparkle, this is a verb that means to like reflect light in a lovely way. Diamonds sparkle when there is light on a diamond, it sparkles. The river can sparkle as well if there is sunlight on a river. Grandma, no, that's not the wolf, it's Little Red Riding Hood. Grandma would love a bouquet, she thought. Here's a bouquet, right? A bunch of flowers. I still have plenty of time. So she stepped off the path to gather flowers. Each time she picked one, she saw another even prettier farther away. Remember, more far, farther away. And she wandered deeper and deeper into the forest. So she's going deeper into the forest. Meanwhile, the wolf ran straight to the grandmother's house and knocked at the door. Meanwhile, at the same time, while Little Red Riding Hood was picking flowers, the wolf was running to grandmother's house and he knocked. You heard me knock the first time, right? We knock on a door. To knock is to hit. Who's there? Called the grandmother. It's me, Little Red Riding Hood, said the wolf sweetly in a sweet way, like sugar. Maybe my voice is not like sugar, but I'm trying. I've brought you cake and wine. Lift the latch, said the grandmother. I'm too weak to get up. So, a latch is a basic lock that helps a door stay closed. You can see this picture of a basic latch. It's very easy to open, it just helps a door stay closed. Lift the latch. I'm too weak to stand, to leave my bed. This is get up. The wolf lifted the latch, pushed open the door, and without a word leapt upon the old woman and swallowed her whole. Leapt is the past of leap. This means to jump far or to jump high. So you can leap over a puddle of water, for example, or maybe a stream of water. So leap over something. So he leapt, he jumped onto the grandmother and swallowed her whole. If you swallow something whole, you eat it in one piece. This is a fairy tale, so it's kind of amazing that the grandmother went inside the wolf's mouth, whole, whole. A little strange imagery, but she needs to be whole so she can be saved later. Then he put on her nightgown and cap, her nightgown, like her night clothes, her pajamas, her cap, pulled the curtains, and lay down in her bed. When Little Red Riding Hood finally reached the cottage, she was surprised to find the door standing open. The door was open. The room felt strange and quiet. Oh dear, she whispered, to speak in a quiet voice like this. Why do I feel so uneasy today? Uneasy is another way to say anxious, not calm, not settled or comfortable. She called out, Good morning, Grandma. But there was no answer. She went to the bed and drew back the curtains. So you can see the kind of bed that Grandma had here because they mention drawing back the curtains. This just means to pull back or open the curtains. I don't really use the word draw or draw back with curtains. You might read it, and you will read it in old literary works, classic fiction. If they say draw the curtains, right? So this means to close the curtains, to draw, or draw back the curtains is to open them. There lay her grandmother, right? Lay is the past of lie, to just rest on a surface. She was laying in her bed. There lay her grandmother, cap pulled low, face shadowed, looking quite odd, covered in shadows. This is how her face was. Odd, unusual, strange. Oh, Grandma, what big ears you have. This is the most famous exchange from this story. Let's try it again. Listen to me. Oh, Grandma, what big ears you have. The better to hear you with, my child, came the growling reply. Growl. But, Grandma, what big eyes you have. The better to see you with, my dear. And what big hands you have. The better to hug you with. But, Grandma, what a terrible big mouth you have. The better to eat you with, roared the wolf. And before she could scream, he sprang from the bed and swallowed Little Red Riding Hood whole. So he swallowed the grandma in one bite. He swallowed Little Red Riding Hood in one bite. Hump, complete. So a roar is a loud, long sound made by an animal. We think about lions roaring. Roar. That is a roar. Actually, that's a onomatopoeia, a word that sounds like the sound it describes. Roar. Okay. And he sprang from the bed. So spring, it's another way to say jump. So we have leap, leapt. We have spring, sprang. This is to jump or leap with speed. And the noun, this is actually a picture of a spring. So you can imagine, right, when you push the spring tight and you let it go, boing, it shoots, right? It shoots quickly. Okay, he sprang from the bed and swallowed Little Red Riding Hood whole. Ah, full and satisfied, full, not hungry, filled to the maximum, the wolf climbed back into bed and soon began to snore loudly. So I made the snoring sound. Shh, shh. So when you breathe in a loud, rough way while sleeping. Just then, a passing huntsman heard the noise and muttered, "The old woman snores like a beast. I should check on her." We don't use the word huntsman that much today. We just use the word hunter. And if you mutter something, you speak in a low voice with your lips partly closed. So you heard me trying to mutter, "That old woman snores like a beast." Right? I'm muttering, "That old woman snores like a beast." My mouth is not opening much. I should check on her. If you check on someone, you see how they are doing. He stepped inside and saw the wolf stretched out in the bed. "So it's you, you wicked creature," he said, raising his gun. But then he thought, maybe the old woman's still inside. So instead of shooting, he took a pair of scissors and carefully cut open the wolf's belly. That's horrifying. So the belly is the stomach or the underside of an animal. He cut open the wolf's belly. And after two careful snips, a snip is a short, small cut. He saw a flash of red inside. A few more cuts, and out sprang, remember, spring, sprang, boing, Little Red Riding Hood, trembling but unharmed, trembling, shaking with fear or with cold. In this case, of course, it's fear. This is a very traumatic experience for Little Red Riding Hood. "Oh, how frightened I was! It was so dark inside," she cried. Then the huntsman cut a little more, and out came the grandmother, pale but alive. So, pale, you are light in color. Your cheeks are not pink or red. You look almost white, like a ghost. Okay. We look pale when we are sick, for example, or maybe if we are scared. Our face drains of its color. To make sure the wolf could never harm anyone again, harm is another verb for hurt, to cause someone pain. They filled his belly with heavy stones. Stones are smaller pieces of rock. In geology, geologists have a problem with people saying rocks and stones are the same thing. Rocks are developed naturally over years, centuries, and stones are like picked off or hit off a rock. So a stone, a small rock, a piece of a rock. When he awoke and tried to flee, run away, a more formal way to say run away, flee, run away, the weight pulled him down and he fell dead on the spot. Another way to say on the spot is then and there. So in the place where he was exactly at that time, on the spot. The huntsman skinned the wolf and went on his way. Now, maybe you know the noun skin, right? You have skin on your body. You can use it as a verb, which means to peel the skin from an animal. So you skin an animal. The huntsman skinned the wolf and went on his way. That's nice of him. He just peeled his skin and he left. Strange. The grandmother ate her cake and drank her wine. Cake and wine, good for you when you're sick, and soon felt much better. As for Little Red Riding Hood, she thought to herself, From now on, I'll never wander from the path again when mother tells me not to. So, to wander, to travel away from a group, or to walk freely without purpose, to explore. Stray and wander are close, but not exactly the same. So, when you use the verb stray, you really mean you leave the path. Wander can mean to, I wandered away or I wandered off the path, but you can also use wander to just mean explore. So if you go on vacation, you can wander around a city, for example. So we wandered around downtown, for example. Okay, almost finished. Some say that later, when she was again walking to her grandmother's with cakes, another wolf tried to tempt her off the path. Is the verb of temptation. Temptation is the noun. If you tempt someone, you try to convince them to do something by offering something pleasant at the end, like, come on, come, I'll give you some ice cream, come with me, right? This is tempting. But this time, Little Red Riding Hood was wiser. This is the comparative of the adjective wise, which means you are intelligent and smart as a result of your knowledge and your experience. So hopefully, as you get older, you get wiser as a human. She walked straight ahead and told her grandmother about the wicked creature she had met. Remember, wicked, a really evil creature. They locked the door tight, and when the wolf tried to sneak down the chimney, to sneak, to enter in a quiet or a secretive way, you can see the image here. And the chimney is the exit on the top of a house where the smoke can escape. And yes, he tried to go down the chimney into their house. He fell into a great trough of boiling sausage water, and that was the end of him. Okay, I'll finish this and then we'll talk about the vocab. And from that day forward, Little Red Riding Hood never strayed from the path, and she lived happily ever after. A classic fairy tale ending. She lived happily ever after. From that point into the future, she had a happy life. So, how did this wolf die? A trough. Typically, today we understand a trough as a large bowl that animals eat from. Typically, pigs eat from a trough, but it can be a more general word for a container, and you can put something in it. In this story, the grandmother had a fire, at the bottom of the chimney, a trough on top of the fire, and she boiled sausages, right? She boiled sausages in the trough. So the smell of sausages, of meat, escaped the house. The wolf smelled the sausages and he wanted to eat the sausages. So he looked down the chimney, pew, poof, fell into the trough of boiling sausage water. um, some versions of the story, the wolf drowns. For me, I think he would just like burn alive in the, he would have burn marks for sure in the water. Must be a deep trough if he drowned it. If he drowned in it, I mean. Okay, whew, that was the second reading. How do you feel? Good? Okay. I hope you are learning some new vocabulary here with leap and spring from that day on, from now on. And now let's see how much you remember of the story. So we have 7 comprehension questions today. Let's jump right into them. Who made Red's hood? We will call the girl Red for these questions. Who made her hood? You have 2 options: her mother or her grandmother. Her grandmother made it. Repeat that. Her grandmother made it. Good. What material is Red's hood made of? Remember, we talked about the theater, the curtains in the theater, the seats in a fancy theater. Her hood is made of velvet. Velvet. That's right. So, yeah, made of velvet. Next, what is Red bringing for her grandmother? There are two items. Do you remember the two items that she is carrying in her basket? Hmm. Cake and wine. As everyone knows, perfect when you are sick, I suppose. So she is bringing cake and wine. Repeat after me. She is bringing cake and wine. Good. Question number 4. What did the wolf want to know? He wanted to know where. Hmm, Red's grandmother lived, right? So he wanted to know where Red's grandmother lived. You can also say he wanted to know the location of Red's grandmother's house. That's also possible. So repeat after me. He wanted to know where Red's grandmother lived. Excellent. Who saved Red and her grandmother? What is the old word that they use in the story? A huntsman. A huntsman saved them. So repeat after me. A huntsman saved them. Excellent. You can also say a hunter. Modern language, we just use the word hunter. Question 6. What did the huntsman put in the wolf's belly? Don't say rocks. What are the smaller pieces of rocks? Stones. Repeat after me. He filled it with stones. Stones. Yes. And final question. How did the second wolf die? So he landed in a of hmm water. So what kind of water and where did he land? It's a tough word. Trough. Trough. So he landed in a trough of when the water is very hot at 100 degrees Celsius, I believe. Boiling water. So repeat after me. He landed in a trough of boiling water. And now you know the story of Little Red Riding Hood. Before we finish, I have some interesting things that I want to tell you about this story so that you can share this information with people you know who might be surprised by what they hear. Here we go. Let's go back into the forest. So, first, we will start with the moral of the story. When you tell this story to children, the main message that most people take from it is don't talk to strangers. Strangers are people you don't know. This is the simple lesson that most kids take from the story. There are, of course, other lessons that you can take from it, such as listen to your parents, stay on the path, right? This is a physical path. It can also be a figurative path. Don't make bad decisions, stay on the correct path. Be careful in public. Just pay attention to your environment. So Little Red Riding Hood is just walking along and she doesn't notice that it's a wolf. She's just talks to him like he's a normal person and it's a little strange. So pay attention to your environment. And be aware that the world is both beautiful and dangerous. I hope you have enjoyed the artwork in this video. Honestly, one of my favorite parts of making this video was looking at this classic artwork. Check out these artists, Carl Larson, Gustave Doré, like a lot of beautiful, wonderful work by these artists. Yeah, the world is beautiful. You can see lovely, lush greenery, and then you have a wolf following a little girl. So you have to be careful. And finally, another lesson: eat cake and drink wine when you're sick. Maybe, maybe. I don't know. I've never done that. So you tell me, has that worked for you? So before we continue with the rest of the information I give you, I just want to say that moving forward, we will discuss some uncomfortable themes, such as sexual assault and rape. So if you are not comfortable hearing about those things, you can stop the video now or just listen to it from the beginning and just enjoy the story as is. However, we will continue because this is an important part of the history of this story. So, first, how old is this story? The truth is, there are many girl and monster stories throughout history. In ancient Greece, over 2,500 years ago, there was a legend about an evil spirit who dressed in the skin of a wolf and raped a virgin girl each year until one year a boxer came and killed the spirit, then married the girl. China, North Africa, Italy, and even Norse mythology also have stories that have elements that are found in Little Red Riding Hood. So, the most popular versions we know today, however, come from Charles Perrault. That was actually the book that I showed you at the beginning of this video. I have the French version. I'm trying to read it. It's short, but it uses older language, so it's a bit of a challenge. And this was written in 1697. Now, this is the first version to give the detail of the Red Hood. Before that, we this was just a little girl. Now it's like, okay, she has something that identifies her more, a red hood. In this story, Red carries cake and a pot of butter. And interestingly, she takes off her clothes before getting into the bed with the wolf. The story ends when the wolf eats Little Red Riding Hood. That's it. She just dies. She gets eaten by the wolf. No one comes to save her. Now, this story was written for the court of King Louis XIV. Charles Perrault was actually part of the court, and he wrote these stories for the entertainment of the court, and also because he was concerned about the morality of the people, specifically the men and the women in the court. So, at the end of the story, we will get to this at the end of this video. Stick around for this part. Perrault added some social commentary at the end of his story. It's written in this text, and I will give you the English version at the end. Now, the most popular version that we know today, it's actually called Little Redcap. It's from the German by the Brothers Grimm. The German name, I will practice my German. I'm not good at German. Rotkäppchen, Rotkäppchen, Rotkäppchen. So they wrote many versions of Little Red Riding Hood. The first version was in 1812, and then in 1857, this is the most common version that we have today. Now, this is similar and very, very close to the version that we read today from AmericanLiterature.com. In it, Red carries cake and wine. Red and her grandmother are saved by a huntsman, and Red and her grandmother outsmart a second wolf who drowns in a trough of boiling water. This is to, give Little Red Riding Hood some revenge and to show that she is actually smart in this. Both of these versions, Le Petit Chaperon Rouge and Rotkäppchen, I like saying that. If you are German, let me know how my pronunciation is. Um, Both of these versions, they reflect the values and the morality and the social concerns of their times. To finish, I really want to talk about the Perot version in particular and some of the deeper adult interpretations of this story. So, the Perot version of Little Red Riding Hood is specifically, and he says this, you'll see this, I'll tell you at the end. This is specifically about the danger that predatory men pose to young women, especially men who talk sweetly, but who are ultimately after one thing: to take a woman to bed. The wolf is just a symbol of a predatory man. The color red could have multiple meanings in the story. It is the color of passion. It could also be read as the color of menstruation and sexual maturity for a woman. So in the Perot version, Little Red Riding Hood actually removes her clothes before getting into bed. Now, I don't know about you, but number one, I have never crawled into bed with my grandma. And number two, if I did, I don't think I would take off my clothes. And after Little Red Riding Hood takes off her clothes, she is swallowed whole by the wolf. This could be interpreted as Red being a willing participant in the exchange. Some readers have interpreted the lines about big eyes, big ears, and big teeth as Red flirting with the wolf. However, most adult readings interpreted this as rape or as an older man taking advantage of a young, impressionable girl. And to finish off, I will leave the final word to Charles Perrault himself. He wrote this in French. I have it in this book. And this is the English translation by Andrew Lang in the Blue Fairy book. So at the end of the story, he writes a moral. He says, "Children, especially attractive, well bred young ladies, should never talk to strangers. For if they should do so, they may well provide dinner for a wolf. I say wolf, but there are various kinds of wolves. There are also those who are charming, quiet, polite, unassuming, complacent, and sweet, who pursue young women at home and in the streets. And unfortunately, it is these gentle wolves who are the most dangerous ones of all." So again, Charles Perrault was writing for the court of Louis XIV. He was writing about the moral concerns of his time and the fears and worries of his time. It's much darker than maybe you expected, than maybe you knew when you heard this story as a child. I learned a lot in this video during the process of making it, and I hope you did too. I loved making this video. So if you want me to make more videos just like this one, make sure you like this video, you comment on it, and you share it with your friends. Until next time, I hope you will keep practicing your English. I hope you won't stray from the path and keep learning and keep practicing. Just be safe, like Little Red Riding Hood, make the right choices. Bye.